In my past life, my sister, Olivia, forced me to marry a poor and unattractive delinquent. 10 years later, that delinquent, Ethan, became a billionaire investment tycoon, and I enjoyed wealth and luxury by his side. But in this life, Olivia acted first. She clung to Ethan and vowed to marry him at any cost. What she didn't know was that the true genius behind the wealth wasn't him. It was me. Ethan was nothing but a puppet I had placed in the spotlight. When I was reborn, I found myself in a dimly lit equipment room. Before me stood a figure panting heavily. My husband from my past life, Ethan. His hands tore open my shirt as he pressed his face against my neck like a wild beast. My body felt limp, trembling uncontrollably. Amid the chaos, I slowly realized what was happening. Time had turned back. I was 18 again, back on the day my sister, Olivia, drugged me. Just as Ethan was about to tear my shirt completely, the door to the equipment room burst open. Someone rushed in. It was Olivia. Her hair was plastered to her sweat-soaked face, and she looked as if she had sprinted all the way. Ignoring her messy appearance, she threw her arms tightly around Ethan. "Ethan, don't be with her. You're mine," she cried. In that moment, everything clicked. Olivia had been reborn too. In our past life, Olivia had been infatuated with the school heartthrob. However, when he gave me a love letter instead of her, Olivia lost control. She drugged me and forced me to marry the worst delinquent in school, Ethan. Ironically, years later, Ethan transformed into a legendary investment tycoon worth billions, and I became the epitome of a wealthy socialite. I rotated through rare Hermes bags, drove a $700,000 Rolls-Royce, and became the envy of everyone. People praised me, saying, "Chloe really chose well. She supported Ethan when he was struggling, and now she's living the dream." Meanwhile, Olivia's wealthy second-generation husband lost all his money, fell into debt, and became a perpetual loser. He even shamelessly flattered Ethan, calling him Mr. E, and begged for investment tips. Olivia's jealousy and regret were evident every time she looked at me. At a family gathering, after Ethan excused himself to the restroom, I saw Olivia follow him. Curious, I followed as well. Standing outside the door, I overheard Olivia's drunken voice. "Ethan, you liked me back then. Don't you remember?" she cried, clutching at him and trying to kiss him. Ethan sharply inhaled and pushed her away forcefully. "That was more than 10 years ago," he said stiffly. Olivia fell to the ground, tears streaming as she sobbed. "Don't you remember how you used to bring me breakfast every day, take me on bike rides, and call me your goddess? You would do anything for me. Ethan, you were supposed to be mine." Ethan ignored her. He adjusted his disheveled clothes and stormed out as if fleeing a plague. Olivia, defeated, collapsed onto the cold restroom floor. I pushed open the door and looked down at her. "Get up," I said coolly. "Anyone passing by might think you're filming a teen drama about unrequited love." Olivia snapped her head up, glaring at me with hatred. "Why is it you, Chloe? What makes you better than me? Why are you the one who married into wealth?" I coldly shook off her hand. "Let's be clear. I ended up with Ethan because of you. Now that he's successful, you regret it? Too bad. It's too late." Olivia stared at me for a moment before her lips curled into a sinister smile. "You're wrong, Chloe. It's not too late." I didn't understand the meaning of her words back then, but now, looking at my 17-year-old body, it all made sense. Olivia must have some sort of system. She brought us both back to this moment, determined to reclaim what she believed was hers. Back in the equipment room, Ethan was still panting heavily, his face flushed with desire. He looked at me, groaning, "I can't take it." Olivia grabbed Ethan's face, forcing him to look at her instead. "Ethan, I love you," she said, pulling him into a kiss. The two quickly became entangled. Watching them, I mustered all my strength to crawl to my feet, fasten my clothes, and stagger out of the room. Thank heavens for Olivia. I never dreamed I'd get the chance to relive this part of my life. Escaping this nightmare almost feels surreal. In my previous life, Olivia gave both Ethan and me drug drinks, locked us in the equipment room, and brought our parents and neighbors to catch us in a compromising position. Seeing me disheveled and in such a state with Ethan, my parents were furious and felt humiliated, convinced that no man would ever want me after this. They forced me to marry Ethan. When I refused, they locked me in the house, depriving me of food and water, beating me every day. Olivia would even stand nearby, pretending to cry and plead. Chloe, just marry Ethan. If you don't, for the sake of the family's reputation, they'll have no choice but to beat you to death. In the end, barely clinging to life, I was dragged into a marriage with Ethan. Even though we eventually amassed wealth and status, this trauma became a shadow that loomed over me for the rest of my life. But now, I finally escaped from it. That evening at dinner, Olivia came home with a flush of excitement on her face. As soon as she walked through the door, she couldn't wait to announce, "I'm going to marry Ethan." Our parents were so shocked they dropped their chopsticks. "Olivia, why? Ethan has been held back in school multiple times. He's already in his 20s and still hasn't graduated. How could he possibly deserve you?" Olivia shook her head with conviction. "You don't understand. Mom, Dad, Ethan might be struggling now, but I promise he'll achieve great things in the future." Our parents were unconvinced and tried harder to dissuade her. Mom even broke into tears, sobbing as she begged her to reconsider. But Olivia grew frustrated and finally snapped. "It doesn't matter what you say. It's too late. I've already given myself to Ethan." She touched her stomach and added with a smirk, "Who knows? I might already be carrying his child." Our parents were utterly stunned. Seeing their horrified and desperate expressions, Olivia calmly sat down beside them, wrapped her arms around their shoulders, and said in a soothing voice, "Mom, Dad, you need to trust your daughter. Remember how I told Dad not to go into business with Uncle Louis, and Mom not to visit that shady clinic on the east side? And look at what happened. Uncle Louis ran off with everyone's money, and that clinic got shut down after a medical scandal. Everything I say always turns out to be true. Don't you remember how the fortune teller said I was destined to bring good fortune to this family?" Hearing this, the tension on their faces eased a little. Olivia pressed on, her tone growing more confident. "So, you need to trust my judgment when it comes to men. Ethan has incredible potential. One day, he'll make us all proud and lead us to a life of wealth and comfort." Mom hesitated but began to waver. "Really?" Olivia smiled confidently. "Would I lie to you?" Even Dad, under Olivia's relentless persuasion, started to believe her. He frowned slightly, now more concerned about the future. "If Ethan really becomes successful, will he treat you well?" Olivia chuckled, her tone serene. "Of course. Ethan has always been someone who cherishes his wife." I could tell she was remembering our past life. After Ethan's identity as an investment mogul was revealed, countless young women tried to throw themselves at him, but he never wavered. In fact, he only treated me, his original wife, better and better. He'd open car doors for me, pick out food for me at meals, and follow my every word without hesitation. On the other hand, Olivia's rich husband, despite being buried in debt, never missed an opportunity to ogle pretty young women on the street. The contrast was stark, and I understood why Olivia's jealousy burned so fiercely. Listening to Olivia praise Ethan to our parents, I kept my head down, quietly eating my meal as if I hadn't heard a thing. But ignoring Olivia didn't mean she'd ignore me. That night, she barged into my room, interrupting me while I was focused on my schoolwork. She stood by the door, staring at me with a cold smile. "Chloe, don't think I don't know what you're up to. You're acting all quiet now, but deep down, you're plotting how to steal Ethan back from me. Am I right?" What could I say? With Olivia's mindset, I almost felt embarrassed to admit we shared the same parents. Still, her misunderstanding suited me just fine. The more obsessed she was with Ethan, the less she'd focus on competing with me for things that truly mattered. As Olivia spoke, she walked closer, gripping my chin and forcing me to look into the mirror beside us. "Don't waste your time," she sneered. "Look at yourself. Do you really think you can compete with me?" In the mirror, a scrawny girl stared back at me. Her skin was dark and dull, her thick glasses perched awkwardly on her nose, and her oversized school uniform hung on her like a sack. Meanwhile, Olivia stood beside me, her porcelain-like skin glowing, her sleek black hair cascading perfectly down her shoulders. She wore a trendy little dress, looking every bit the radiant beauty who turned heads wherever she went. I admit, I didn't have the same delicate features as Olivia. On top of that, our parents' blatant favoritism meant she always got the best food and clothes, while I was left with the bare minimum, malnourished and sickly. I grew up pale and thin, making the contrast between us even more glaring. Look at yourself, Olivia sneered, her mocking voice grating in my ears. Do you really think any boy would ever like you? Ethan has always been my lapdog. In our past life, he couldn't get me, so he settled for you. But this time, I'm not giving you that chance. As soon as I'm old enough, I'll marry him right away. When he becomes Q-God again, half of his wealth will be mine. Her eyes sparkled with ambition as she spoke. Ethan's fortune peaked at tens of billions. Even if we get divorced, taking half will be more than enough for me to live a life of luxury and have my pick of younger, handsome men. I gripped the pen in my hand tightly, keeping my head lowered to hide the faint smile creeping onto my lips. Olivia thought I was hurt by her words, but in truth, I was merely amused. Dear sister, I welcome your disdain. It's precisely because of this deep-rooted arrogance of yours that you'll never, not even in 1,000 lifetimes, realize the truth. The real Q-God is me. That's right. I'm the one who built a fortune from scratch, relying on intelligence, courage, and luck. I made my first windfall in the stock market, then went all in on Bitcoin at just the right time, achieving financial freedom. The name Q-God came from my forum username, Core2, which I randomly typed out on my keyboard. It became a legend in investment circles, with countless people wondering about my true identity. Knowing I couldn't stay hidden forever, I pushed Ethan into the spotlight as my puppet, or, more accurately, my scapegoat. In our world of extreme highs and lows, wealth draws both envy and danger. Ethan was kidnapped 3 times and assaulted by rivals on 4 occasions. Once, when we returned to visit family, he had just been beaten. One of his ribs was broken. That's why, when Olivia clung to him in our past life, he recoiled, gasping in pain, before shoving her away. Despite bearing the brunt of these attacks, Ethan never dared expose the truth. He knew that as long as he stayed my puppet, he could enjoy riches and status. Without me, he would have been nothing. As I looked at Olivia, still blissfully unaware of the truth, I gave her my most sincere smile. Sister, I truly wish you and Ethan a long and happy life together. Go ahead and tie yourself to him. Meanwhile, I'll focus on studying hard, save money, and move to Beijing for college. I'll leave this house, and all of you, behind for good. I truly hoped Ethan would stay with Olivia and keep her occupied. But after school that day, I found myself blocked by Ethan. He rode his bike straight in front of me, whistling playfully. Chloe, you're looking pretty today. Dressing up for someone. I took a step back, a chill running down my spine. I knew Ethan's true nature too well. He was rotten to the core. In his world, the women he couldn't have were always the most desirable. In our past life, that had been Olivia. Now, it was me. Clenching my teeth, I tried to sidestep him. I'm on my way to work. Get out of my way. I had recently started working at a supermarket, earning some money to build a small savings fund. My boss was kind, noticing that my school uniform pants were too short and ill-fitting. She lent me some clothes from her daughter, a light blue cardigan and a white skirt, making me look far more presentable than usual. Unfortunately, this also caught Ethan's attention. He grinned and leaned closer. Work? Why bother? I've got plenty of work for you right here. His words were shameless, his tone dripping with sleaze as he tried to inch closer to me. Suppressing my disgust, I discreetly reached into my backpack, wrapping my fingers around a pair of scissors I carried for self-defense. But before I could pull them out, someone else rushed forward, shoving me aside and stepping in front of Ethan. It was Olivia. She jabbed a finger at me, her voice shrill. Chloe, what the hell are you doing clinging to Ethan? Have you no shame? Trying to seduce your sister's fiancé. Ethan, standing a short distance away, rubbed his nose sheepishly and chimed in. I just happened to run into Chloe while riding by. She wouldn't let me leave. Olivia's fury only grew, her voice escalating. Chloe, I couldn't believe Olivia still thought she could crush me so easily. She glared at me, her voice dripping with contempt. Still not giving up? Huh. Take a good look at yourself in the mirror. What makes you think you're worthy of Ethan? This life. I'm marrying him for sure. And if you dare try to take him away, I'll have Mom and Dad sell you off to some remote mountain village. With that, Olivia grabbed Ethan by the arm and dragged him away, but she still wasn't satisfied. That evening, when I returned home, I found my room in complete disarray. My belongings were scattered everywhere, and the small tin box where I had been saving my hard-earned money was lying open in the center of the room. It was empty. All the cash I'd saved from my job at the supermarket was now in Olivia's hands. She stood there, gloating, waving my money in one hand and pointing a long, sharp-nailed finger at my face with the other. So this is your secret stash. Huh, Chloe? She sneered. No wonder you've been sneaking out so much lately. You're not working. You're sleeping with the supermarket boss. I saw it with my own eyes. He gave you money and even bought you those new clothes you're wearing. Her finger jabbed toward the cardigan and skirt I had borrowed from my boss's daughter. Olivia clicked her tongue mockingly. I'm sure the whole neighborhood knows by now that the Chi family raised a mistress. What a disgrace. Before I could say anything, my father stormed in with a face like thunder. He slapped me hard across the face, sending me stumbling backward. My mother stood nearby, sobbing. I told you this child was cursed. Even the fortune teller said she would bring misfortune. I took so many herbal remedies while pregnant, hoping to get rid of her, but nothing worked. Now look at this. She's ruined our family's reputation. My parents were always like this. They adored Olivia unconditionally, forgiving her for anything she did. Meanwhile, I was the scapegoat, branded as a bad omen since birth. When I was just a baby, my father's business went bankrupt, and from that moment on, everything I did was considered wrong. That day, my father took all the money I had saved, leaving me with nothing. Then he grabbed his belt and started beating me while Olivia stood off to the side, smiling smugly. Despite her glee, she put on a fake, tearful voice. Chloe, don't blame Dad for being harsh. If he doesn't teach you a lesson, you'll never learn. A girl needs to respect herself. You better stop earning dirty money like this. I passed out from the pain. When I woke up, I was lying in the courtyard. My parents had taken Olivia out shopping to buy her a beautiful dress for her engagement. I was left behind, penniless, without even any medicine to tend to my wounds. Weak and trembling, I forced myself to crawl out of the courtyard and made my way to my cousin's house next door. Only his wife, Grace, was home. She was scrubbing laundry in the yard when she saw me. Her eyes widened in shock. Chloe, oh my God, what happened to you? Grace dropped her laundry and rushed over to help me. As she touched my arm, she accidentally pressed on one of my wounds and winced at the blood on her hands. Wait here. I'll get some medicine. I lay on the ground, staring up at the sky. The moon shone brightly, but there were still corners of the world so dark its light couldn't reach them. Grace returned with ointment and began tending to my wounds. How can your parents be so cruel? She muttered, dabbing the medicine carefully. You're their daughter. For heaven's sake. Grace wiped away her tears as she worked. She was a kind woman with a soft heart, but life had been unkind to her. She'd only finished elementary school before her family forced her to quit and help out at home. Later, her father sold her to my cousin in exchange for money for her brother's wedding. Now, she endured constant abuse from my cousin. As Grace gently applied ointment to my cuts, I noticed her arms. They were covered in old scars. In my past life, Grace had died before she even turned 30. Quietly, I reached out and touched her arm. Grace, do you have any money saved up? She froze for a moment, then quickly reassured me. Don't worry. I won't tell your cousin. What do you need money for? When I didn't respond, she sighed and admitted, I've saved up 2,000 yuan. Is it for your education? If your parents won't support you, take it. Girls should study and make something of themselves. Her generosity brought tears to my eyes, but I held them back. In a world filled with cruelty, small acts of kindness like hers felt even more precious. No, Grace, I whispered. I don't need your money for school. I want to help you make more. I can turn your 2,000 into 20,000, maybe even 200,000. Grace burst out laughing. She clearly didn't believe me, and her tone was indulgent, as if humoring a child. All right, Chloe, just take the 2.000 and focus on your studies. Pay me back after you graduate. We're family. After all, I could even pay you interest. Grace teased, trying to lighten the mood, but I stayed silent, gazing up at the boundless night sky. In my past life, I started building my fortune too late. By the time I returned home, Grace had already succumbed to depression and passed away. This time, I was determined to help her, and, in doing so, help myself. Olivia, you're such a fool. You were given the miraculous chance to turn back time, yet all you can think about is stealing a man. Meanwhile, my mind is filled with stock codes. Do you even realize the golden opportunity you handed me? On Monday morning, I took the money Grace had given me and headed to school. My plan was to slip away during the long recess, unnoticed, and go to the brokerage firm to open an account. But as I rode my bike out of the school gate, I barely made it down the street before someone suddenly jumped out of an alley. The person swung a spiked wooden stick at me. I swerved desperately to avoid it, only to crash hard onto the ground. Ignoring the pain, I clutched my backpack tightly. It held all of Grace's money. When I looked up, I saw a pair of brand new designer shoes in front of me. Following them upward, I met the gaze of a round, smug face grinning down at me maliciously. I recognized him immediately. It was Noah Cheen, Olivia's devoted admirer from our past life. Noah had been trailing after Olivia like a loyal puppy since middle school. A spoiled rich kid. His father owned a successful business in the South, while the rest of us wore dull school uniforms and knockoff sneakers. Noah flaunted the latest luxury brands as if he owned the world. Olivia despised his looks but couldn't resist his wealth, so she kept him hanging on throughout her teenage years, treating him as her #1 backup plan. In the previous timeline, when Olivia couldn't find anyone better, she eventually married Noah. But shortly after their wedding, his family business went bankrupt, and Olivia, having invested heavily in his ventures, was dragged into ruin. They became social outcasts, barred from even taking high-speed trains because of their debts. At this moment, however, Noah was still the arrogant heir of a wealthy family, someone I couldn't afford to provoke. Holding my backpack tightly, I cautiously backed away, hoping to avoid a confrontation. But Noah wasn't about to let me go. He kicked me lightly in the face with his expensive shoe, sneering, "So, you're the sneaky little sister everyone keeps warning me about. What are you up to, sneaking out of school like this?" "I'm just buying something," I mumbled. "Buying something?" Noah chuckled, then abruptly stopped laughing. He grabbed my backpack strap and yanked it hard, spilling its contents onto the ground. Books, a pencil case, and a small envelope fell out, scattering across the pavement. I lunged for the envelope, but Noah was faster. Snatching it up, he opened it and whistled. "Whoa, that's a lot of cash. What are you buying with this?" "Wedding candy for your sister and me." He pocketed the envelope, his tone turning icy. "Don't think I don't know. People have been telling me all about you. How jealous you are of Olivia and how you're willing to be someone's mistress just to buy yourself some pretty dresses. So, what's the truth? Did you steal this money? Or scam someone for it? Either way, I'm telling Olivia." With that, he kicked me hard, sending me sprawling into a dusty wall, coughing from the dust. I suddenly felt a chilling clarity. Noah was following me because of Olivia's orders. She must have sent him to spy on me. Still feeling insecure even after securing Ethan. But that wasn't the most important thing. The key was what Noah had just said. "Wedding candy for your sister and me." I burst into laughter. Perfect. Noah had no idea that Olivia was already involved with Ethan. It made sense. She was still stringing Noah along, knowing he might be useful to her. If Noah found out she was planning to marry someone else, he'd never lift a finger for her again. Noah froze mid-step, turning back to glare at me. "What's so funny?" My smile only widened. "I'm just happy for Olivia. You love her so much and protect her so well. I'm sure I'll have a wonderful brother-in-law in you. I really hope the two of you get married soon." Noah's scowl softened at my words. He liked hearing this, but he still gave me a skeptical look and drawled, "You think sweet-talking me will get you out of this? Not happening. You don't need to let me go. I haven't done anything wrong." I stood up, brushing the dirt off my clothes. That money is from Grace, my cousin's wife. She wanted me to buy some gifts for Olivia's big day. Noah's expression shifted instantly. His brows furrowed. What big day? Feigning confusion, I tilted my head. I'm not sure. I just heard my parents say they're planning to arrange her engagement before she goes off to college. It makes sense, though. Childhood sweethearts from the same hometown. Better that than risking her getting scammed by someone in the big city. I carefully watched Noah's face. I smiled faintly. You're such an idiot. How have you not figured it out yet? Noah looked genuinely puzzled. Figured out what? Who else would my sister be getting engaged to if not you? I said sweetly, pretending to be completely sincere. Everyone knows how much you like Olivia. My parents have been talking about childhood sweethearts. Among all the guys around her, who could possibly be a better match for her than you? Noah's expression faltered, turning hesitant. But why hasn't Olivia said anything to me about it? Oh, you know my sister, I replied, acting sympathetic. She's probably just shy, but I've noticed her sneaking off to the woods behind the school a lot lately. She's probably preparing a surprise for you. Noah's face lit up at the word surprise. Really? Are you serious? Why don't you go and check for yourself? I said with a grin. Now, about the money. Hand it over. I still need to pick out a dress for Olivia. Do you think she'd look better in pink or blue? I'll go with whatever you prefer. Dear brother-in-law. The title brother-in-law made Noah so giddy he didn't even think twice. He slapped the envelope of cash into my palm. Pink, he said quickly. And then, without another word, he sprinted toward the school, eager to uncover Olivia's so-called surprise. Whistling a tune, I got back on my bike, my mood soaring. This surprise would undoubtedly leave Noah with a memory he'd never forget. By the time I arrived at the brokerage, Grace was already waiting anxiously outside. It was her first time visiting a trading floor, and the sight of colorful screens filled with numbers and graphs left her feeling completely lost. Chloe, do you even understand any of this? I didn't need to look at the screens to know the answer. From the moment I bought my first stock in my past life, I had memorized the market trends for decades. The rise and fall of every stock were etched into my brain. But I didn't explain any of this to Grace. I simply smiled. Trust me, I've got this. Inside the brokerage, I spotted a familiar figure, Noah's father, Mr. Cheen. He was busy handling some business with his secretary. However, mid-conversation, he took a phone call, and his face immediately darkened. Without finishing his paperwork, he rushed outside and got into a sleek black sedan parked at the entrance. I silently watched the car drive off, disappearing down the road toward the school. Grace came over after completing the paperwork. What are you looking at? She asked. Nothing, I replied, glancing at the sky. It just feels like the weather is about to change. Sure enough, things took a dramatic turn. Noah, thrilled by my help, dashed to the woods behind the school, expecting a romantic surprise from Olivia. Instead, he stumbled upon a scene he could never have imagined. The unmistakable sounds of passion greeted him, and when he stepped closer, he discovered the participants were none other than his goddess, Olivia, and the very delinquent he despised, Ethan. For Noah, this was the most devastating shock of his 20-something years of life. When he finally snapped out of it, the sound of ambulance sirens filled the air. He had beaten Ethan so severely that the latter had to be rushed to the hospital in critical condition. When I arrived at the hospital, Ethan had already regained consciousness. He was completely wrapped in bandages, lying on the bed like a mummy, unable to move. The sight was oddly familiar to me. In our past life, when I used him as a shield to take the brunt of our enemies' attacks, he often ended up in similar states. But Olivia had never seen anything like this before. Standing by his bed, she was sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. Meanwhile, Noah had been dragged into the hospital room by his father, Mr. Cheen. Mr. Cheen was there to negotiate compensation to avoid jail time for his son. However, the moment Noah stepped into the room and saw Ethan, he lost control again. Like an enraged bull, he charged at Ethan, ready to attack. If it weren't for Mr. Cheen's two secretaries restraining him, Ethan might have been tossed out the window. Noah, apologize, Mr. Cheen shouted. his voice filled with urgency. Apologize for what? I did nothing wrong. Noah fumed, glaring at Ethan, pointing a trembling finger at the man in the hospital bed. He yelled. He assaulted Olivia. That's why I beat him. Poor Noah. Without the perspective of someone who had been reborn, what else could he have thought upon seeing Olivia and Ethan together? His immediate reaction was to assume Ethan had forced himself on her. Noah, please, he begged Olivia, his voice breaking. Say something. I did it to protect you. Even Mr. Cheen turned to Olivia, his expression desperate. Young lady, you were there. You're the key witness. Please tell us the truth. All eyes turned to Olivia, who stood frozen, biting her lip. After a long moment of hesitation, she finally spoke, her face turning red with shame. We were both willing. Noah's face went pale. What? Olivia, that's impossible. Ethan, despite his injuries, managed to flash a smug grin. For a lowlife like him, this was the ultimate triumph. In his entire life, he'd never imagined having the upper hand against someone like Noah, and Olivia had handed him this victory on a silver platter. That's right, Ethan declared loudly, ignoring the pain shooting through his body. Olivia and I are in love. Noah deliberately assaulted me. He should be sent to jail. Mr. Cheen's expression darkened. Stepping forward, he ignored Ethan and turned his focus to Olivia. Miss Chi, he said, his tone heavy with pressure. You should think carefully before you speak, Mr. Cheen said, his tone heavy with warning. The Cheen family's wealth and influence were immense, and even my parents were beginning to falter. They nervously hinted at Olivia. Olivia, maybe you should reconsider. Think this through. I could see that Olivia was struggling internally, but she had no choice. She couldn't afford to offend Ethan, let alone risk losing him. To her, Ethan wasn't just a person. He was the legendary Q god, the future holder of billions in wealth. Compared to that, the Cheen family's current power was insignificant. Olivia firmly grasped Ethan's hand and declared, There's nothing to think about. Ethan and I are in love. Anyone who hurts him must pay the price. Noah couldn't hold back any longer, shaking off the secretaries restraining him. He lunged forward and slapped Olivia hard across the face. Olivia, are you blind? In our previous life, Noah had been reduced to nothing shortly after marrying Olivia. She had always looked down on him, and this was the first time she had ever been struck by someone she so thoroughly despised. She snapped instantly, screaming, Who do you think you are? Noah? You're nothing but a useless rich kid. Do you think having money makes you special? Let me tell you something, in a few years, you'll be bankrupt. The room fell silent. Even Mr. Cheen, standing off to the side, went pale at her words. After a moment, he stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Noah chased after him, leaving only my family in the hospital room. My father anxiously rubbed his hands together. Olivia, why on earth did you have to offend the Cheen family? Do you know what you've done? For the past few years, my father had been relying on the Cheen family's resources to run a small business. Now that Olivia had made enemies of the Cheens, his business prospects were as good as dead. Olivia, however, seemed unfazed. She frowned impatiently and said, Dad, stop being so short-sighted. If the business is gone, it's gone. It doesn't matter. As long as I have Ethan, we'll have everything we need. She turned to Ethan, gazing at him like he was the most precious treasure in the world. My father, defeated, could only sigh and say no more. The days that followed were busy for everyone. My parents scrambled to deal with the Cheen family's retaliation in the business world. Olivia devoted herself to taking care of Ethan at the hospital, doting on him like a lovesick girl. Meanwhile, I focused on my studies and making money. Each of us seemed to be chasing our own version of a bright future. One evening, Olivia came home after making soup for Ethan at the hospital. She passed by my room and saw me bent over my desk, diligently working on practice questions. She sneered, Work as hard as you want. Even if you get into the best schools, like Tsinghua or Peking University, you'll still just end up with a dead-end job earning peanuts. I ignored her, keeping my head down and continuing my work. In my past life, I never had the chance to go to college. Forced into a marriage with Ethan, I later earned my degree through self-study. but it was a bittersweet accomplishment. This time, I was determined to seize the opportunity to experience everything I had missed. 4 years of campus life, an untainted first love, late-night talks with roommates about our dreams, and the camaraderie of working on club activities before heading out for midnight snacks. These were joys I had been denied in my previous life, and I wasn't about to let anyone take them away again. After Olivia left, I met up with Grace. She had her scarf pulled up over her face, while I wore a baseball cap with the brim pulled low. We looked like two thieves conspiring in the dark. "I followed all your instructions for buying and selling," Grace said, handing me a bank book. To my surprise, it contained not just the original 2,000 yuan she had lent me but also all the profits we had made. "What are you doing?" I asked, shocked. "This is your money. It's the return on your investment." Grace waved me off. "I didn't do anything to earn it. It's your money. I'd be struck by lightning if I kept it." We argued back and forth for a long time, but Grace was adamant. Finally, I said, "All right, then let's do it this way. I'll hire you." Grace blinked in confusion. "Hire me? For what?" "I'm still preparing for my exams," I explained. "I need someone to handle the follow-up work. And since I can't open an account under my own name until I'm 18, I'll need to keep using yours for a while. For all this, you deserve a commission." Grace shook her head again. "We're family. I can't take your money." I grabbed her hand and said, "Also, once I graduate, I'll be running my own business. I want you to join me as my BD." Her eyes widened. "What's a BD?" "Business development," I explained. "It's someone who builds relationships and expands opportunities. You're outgoing, great at talking to people, and you make everyone like you. You'd be perfect for the role. I thought this job would suit you perfectly," I told Grace. But before she could respond, we heard the sound of the front door opening. Olivia and Ethan had returned home. Grace and I exchanged a quick look of understanding and immediately went our separate ways without a word, each heading back to our own homes. We had agreed on this in advance. Now that we had a sizable sum of money saved, it was crucial to keep things low profile. Wandering through a busy town with that kind of cash was far too dangerous. Until I was strong enough to protect myself, no one could find out about our earnings. When I got home, I could hear Olivia and Ethan chatting happily in her room. Ethan's voice carried a tone of excitement, as though he was on the brink of achieving greatness. "Mr. Lee said it himself," he exclaimed. "The others are mediocre, but he could tell right away that I'm destined for greatness. He's going to teach me everything he's learned in the investment world." Olivia was equally thrilled. "Ethan, I knew this day would come." In the kitchen, I peeled an apple and casually took a bite, already understanding exactly what was happening. In our past life, Olivia had been sent to a private college in Beijing by my parents, and she'd never met Mr. Lee, but I had. Mr. Lee was always impeccably dressed in three-piece suits, complete with a vest, and spoke flawless English. He claimed to have returned from Wall Street and was renowned for his charismatic personality and riveting speeches. In his lectures, he often declared that he had already achieved financial freedom, and that his new life mission was to help others get rich as well. To someone like Olivia, who believed Ethan was destined to transform from a delinquent into the legendary Q god, worth billions, Mr. Lee fit the narrative perfectly. He was the wise mentor, the golden opportunity, the magical key to Ethan's rise. "Let's go see Mr. Lee again tomorrow," Olivia said enthusiastically. "Ethan, you just need to focus on learning from him. Don't worry about anything else." Ethan hesitated. "But the $6,000 apprenticeship fee. Mr. Lee said it's required." Olivia gritted her teeth. "I'll figure it out." I almost choked on my apple, unable to believe how naive Olivia was. I had known she wasn't the brightest, but I hadn't realized her thought process was this simplistic. In her mind, all her past failures could be blamed on not choosing the right man. Naturally, she now believed that throwing her faith and money into Mr. Lee's hands would guarantee their success. In our past life, Ethan had also been overjoyed at the prospect of learning from Mr. Lee. He had begged me to let him pay the apprenticeship fee, but even back then, I'd been skeptical. As someone with little social experience, I still understood one thing. People who truly know how to make money wouldn't waste their precious time teaching others how to do it. If Mr. Lee was already as wealthy as he claimed, why would he need to charge us $6,000? Ethan had dismissed me as short-sighted and insisted that Mr. Lee was a philanthropist, guiding others to prosperity for the sake of karma and goodwill. In the end, Ethan had gone behind my back to meet Mr. Lee anyway, since he couldn't afford the fee. Mr. Lee graciously offered to waive it, which only deepened Ethan's admiration. He followed Mr. Lee to the south and disappeared for over a year. When he finally reappeared, it was to call me in tears, begging for help after escaping from a pyramid scheme. So when I heard Olivia and Ethan discussing their plans with Mr. Lee, I couldn't help but feel a shred of pity for them. But that pity evaporated completely when I overheard Olivia talking to my mother that same evening. "Mom, Chloe will be 18 this weekend," Olivia began. "I think it's time for her to start meeting potential matches. Ethan knows a wealthy older man. He's a bit older, but he's willing to pay $18,000 as a bride price. Our family's been struggling financially lately, especially with Dad's business failing. Ethan's opportunity with Mr. Lee just needs a $6,000 investment. If Chloe agrees to meet this man and things go well, we can use the bride price to cover the fee." So this was Olivia's brilliant plan, selling me to fund Ethan's apprenticeship. Any lingering sympathy I'd felt for her vanished entirely. "Fine, Olivia. Keep digging your own grave. I'm looking forward to watching you destroy yourself." When my 18th birthday arrived, my family went out of their way to celebrate. They bought me a cream cake and even gifted me a new dress. After I put it on, my parents asked me to twirl in front of the mirror. "Chloe, you're becoming such a beautiful young lady," my father said, beaming. 18 is a wonderful age. Even Olivia chimed in with praise. "Chloe looks so sweet and obedient. Her grades are excellent too. Wealthy men love girls like her." Encouraged by Olivia's words, my parents seized the opportunity to broach the subject. "Chloe, we've arranged for you to meet someone," my father began. "He's older, but he's kind and stable." "How old?" I asked, my voice calm. "Just a bit older than you," my mother said with a nervous smile. "He's 47, but older men know how to cherish their wives better." I stared at them, unblinking. "You mean the same man whose previous 2 wives left him because they couldn't endure his domestic abuse?" In my mind, I cursed them relentlessly, but outwardly, I smiled sweetly. "All right, thank you, Mom, Dad, and Olivia, for putting so much thought into my future. I'd be happy to meet him, but since I have college entrance exams coming up, let's wait until after I'm done with those." My parents and Olivia, clearly not expecting my cooperation, were overjoyed. That night, I overheard them talking. "Chloe probably knows she can't find a good match on her own. Hearing that the man is wealthy, she's likely more than willing," Olivia said smugly. I smirked quietly to myself and went back to studying. The college entrance exams finally arrived. Since I hadn't been forced into marrying Ethan in this life, I was able to focus entirely on my studies and sit for the exams without any interference. I had always been a top student, and when I turned in my last paper, I felt confident. Walking out of the exam hall, I didn't go home. Instead, I headed straight to a hotel, where Grace was waiting for me. "This is everything you asked for," she said, handing me a newly purchased suitcase. Inside were clothes, a laptop, a phone, and toiletries, all meticulously prepared according to the list I'd given her. "I'm not going back home," I said, taking the suitcase. Grace hesitated. "You know, your parents will probably be worried when they realize you're gone." I laughed bitterly. "If they're worried, it'll only be because they can't find their precious bride price. It won't be about me." Lifting my head, I looked at Grace earnestly. "Come with me, Grace. I'm heading to Shenzhen this summer," I said. "There are so many opportunities there. You can be my BD. And together, we'll make a fortune." Grace's hands, accustomed to a lifetime of housework, clenched tightly at her sides. I could see the fear in her eyes. After a long pause, she sighed. "Chloe, you should go. You're destined for bigger things." "But I can't." Grace, or as her full name went, Grace Lee Waning, left me at the hotel and returned home alone. As she walked, Tears streamed down her face. She hated herself but didn't even know why. She wasn't a brave person. She never had been. Her entire life, she had followed orders. When her parents told her to drop out of school, she did. When they told her to care for her younger brother, she became his second mother. When they married her off to fund her brother's wedding, she obediently became the wife of a violent man. Her husband dictated her every move, and she complied without question. Just like everyone around her, no one ever resisted. The only person who had ever encouraged her to fight back was Chloe. But Chloe was just an 18-year-old girl. A girl with the kind of naive courage that only youth could provide. Grace had never possessed that courage, not even when she was young. And now, as an adult, seemed even further out of reach. When Grace returned home, the house was in chaos. Her husband lay sprawled on the mattress, surrounded by empty liquor bottles. The moment she stepped through the door, a bottle flew past her and shattered against the doorframe, sending shards of glass scattering across her. Finally decided to come back. Huh? What? Trying to starve me to death? He roared. It was the same scene every day. Lowering her head, Grace silently went to the kitchen to cook. She chopped vegetables with loud, forceful motions, trying to drown out his shouting with the sound of the knife hitting the cutting board. But his voice was relentless. You're useless. Don't even bring in a single cent. You eat my food, live under my roof, and still have the audacity to act like this? And don't give me that nonsense about your cyst. Let me tell you, if you don't give me a son this year, I'll break your legs. Grace said nothing, her knife moving faster and faster as a strange heat surged within her. Memories flashed through her mind. Her bank book, now holding $10,000 that Chloe had left her. Her husband begrudgingly giving her a measly 1,000 yuan a month for household expenses while berating her for not managing it better. Chloe's words echoed in her mind. Awakening is both a slow process and a sudden moment. We all think that if we endure just a little more, life will get easier. But it doesn't. There will come a moment when you'll say, "To hell with this." And that's when your whole world will change. Her knife hit the cutting board with a loud thud as her husband yelled again. What the hell are you doing in there? Trying to starve me to death? You've been running around outside all day. I should tie you up with a dog leash. Grace suddenly slammed the knife into the cutting board with such force that the entire counter shook. To hell with this, she muttered under her breath. It was an unusual afternoon. Grace's husband, notorious for his temper, suddenly found himself staring at his wife, once known for her docile nature. As she stormed out of the kitchen, clutching the kitchen knife in her hand, she shouted, "To hell with this. I'm done." Grace Lee whinnying stormed out of her house, leaving everything behind. She wore nothing but her slippers and an apron, taking nothing with her. Behind her was the home she had carefully maintained, her marriage, and her family of origin. But she didn't look back. She ran down the street, heading toward a vast setting sun. And for the first time in her life, she felt certain that she was running toward a new world. As I was preparing to leave the hotel for the train station, Grace came running up, breathless and disheveled. She had lost one slipper. Her hair was a mess, and her apron was still tied around her waist. "Chloe, I've made up my mind. I'm coming with you," she gasped. I looked at her, raising an eyebrow. "Okay, but could you put the knife down first?" In her rush to leave, Grace had forgotten to let go of the kitchen knife she had been holding. Ironically, it was this very knife that had kept her abusive husband from daring to stop her. She had made it out safely. I bought her a new pair of shoes and then a train ticket. As we sat together, she looked at me with a sparkle in her eyes. "Chloe, you said you'd make me your BD. What do I need to learn? I'll do it. Even though I'm older now, I can still learn." "It's BD, not BB." I corrected her with a small smile. "And you're not old. 25 is still young. There's plenty of time." "Plenty of time," Grace echoed eagerly. "I can do this." Her enthusiasm made me smile. Starting is always the hardest part. But now that we've started, we have all the time in the world to get better. As the train departed, the golden sunlight streamed through the windows. Grace sat beside me, excitedly studying a notebook filled with vocabulary words. I leaned against the window, watching the endless scenery pass by. The next 10 years would be a transformative era for China's economy. The opportunities would be limitless, like a great river swelling with potential. I was ready. This time, I would do even better. 3 years later, I saw Olivia again. She and Ethan had just escaped from a pyramid scheme operation in the South and were giving statements at the police station. Since I was a family member, the police called me in as well. When I saw Olivia, I barely recognized her. In just 3 years, she looked as though she had aged 20. Gray hair streaked her head, and deep furrows creased her brow. Ethan, on the other hand, had gone from a young delinquent to an older one. His hunched back and shifty eyes made him look even more conniving than before. They didn't recognize me either. I was dressed in a simple yet elegant long dress with no visible logo, but the quality of the fabric spoke for itself. My previously dark and thin skin had been nurtured to a smooth, fair glow, and my once dry and yellowed hair now flowed like ink, glossy and soft as it cascaded over my shoulders. The car that had brought me to the police station was a familiar Rolls-Royce. The driver, wearing white gloves, opened the door for me, and a bodyguard in a black suit silently followed behind. As I took a seat across from Olivia, her face froze in shock. "No, impossible," she muttered. I tilted my head, feigning confusion. "What's impossible? You didn't marry Ethan. Ethan is mine," she shouted, her voice suddenly hysterical. "How are you rich?" I frowned, clearly annoyed. "Sister, it's been 3 years since we last saw each other. Is this really what you want to say the moment we meet? I've never tried to take Ethan from you. He's all yours. Rest assured on that point." My tone was cold. I already knew everything that had happened 3 years ago, after I ran away right after the college entrance exams. My parents had been unable to find me, and the arranged marriage plans fell through. Desperate to come up with the $6,000 apprenticeship fee for Ethan, Olivia had borrowed money from loan sharks, convinced it was worth the investment. In her mind, Ethan's eventual success as Q-God would make any amount of interest worthwhile. But one misstep after another led them straight into disaster. Olivia and Ethan had followed Mr. Lee to the South, only to end up trapped in a pyramid scheme. They were beaten, restricted, and stripped of their freedom. Olivia, frantic and desperate, had repeatedly asked Ethan, "Did you go through this in your past life?" But Ethan, lacking the knowledge of a reborn life, couldn't answer her. Now, sitting across from me, Olivia's face twisted as she desperately tried to piece together what had gone wrong. After a long silence, her expression suddenly shifted into a strange smile. "I get it now. You remembered the stocks Ethan bought in the last life and repeated his actions in this one, didn't you?" Olivia sneered, her tone sharp as she tried to analyze my success. I idly played with the jade ring on my finger, too lazy to entertain her. Her intelligence didn't even qualify her to have this conversation with me. Faced with the golden opportunity of being reborn, she didn't even think to memorize a few winning lottery numbers. Instead, all she could focus on was clinging to Ethan. But that didn't matter. Ethan had already escaped the pyramid scheme, and sooner or later, he'd try his hand at the stock market again. Olivia's voice rang out with determination. "Just you wait, Chloe. This time, I'll live a better life than you." After leaving the police station, Olivia started borrowing money from anyone she could. She worked tirelessly to scrape together enough for Ethan to invest in stocks. "But I don't understand this stuff," Ethan said, visibly confused. "Don't worry," Olivia reassured him, gripping his hand tightly. "You're Q-God. Just follow your instincts." Ethan had no idea what Q-God meant, but he had always overestimated himself. Fueled by Olivia's praise and after reading a few stories online about people striking it rich in the stock market, he was convinced his moment had come. He made bold purchases, and at first, sheer luck allowed him to make a small profit. Overjoyed, Olivia celebrated and encouraged him to reinvest everything they had into the market. But soon, they were hit by an unprecedented market crash. Olivia refused to believe it. Clutching Ethan's hand, she insisted, "It's okay, Ethan. You're Q-God. We can turn this around." They decided to sleep on it, hoping to clear their minds and come up with a plan the next day. The following morning, Ethan woke up rubbing his eyes. "I had the strangest dream," he said, turning to Olivia. "In my dream, in our last life, When Chloe and I were locked in the equipment room, you didn't barge in. Chloe and I got married, and you went to Beijing for school. You ended up marrying Noah, and Chloe and I stayed in our hometown. Then Mr. Lee appeared. I wanted to learn from him, but Chloe wouldn't let me. I went behind her back anyway and ended up in a pyramid scheme. Just like now. A few years later, I escaped and called Chloe for help. By then, she was rich. She told me she didn't want to help but said if I wanted to stay with her, I'd have to work for her. She made me give interviews, pose for photos, and repeat everything she told me to say. That's how people started calling me Q God. Ethan paused, scratching his head. But I didn't know anything about stocks. I was just Chloe's scapegoat. People who hated Q God came after me. I almost got killed a few times. I knew Chloe hated me, and that this was her way of punishing me. But I didn't dare leave her. Without her, I was just a useless nobody. Ethan turned to Olivia. His face filled with confusion as he noticed her expression growing darker by the second. He waved his hand in front of her face. Honey, are you mad at me? You're not jealous because I dreamed about being with Chloe, are you? I'm sorry. I swear I love you the most. He chuckled nervously. But, the dream was so detailed. Do you think it could have been real? Before he could finish, Olivia let out an ear-piercing scream. She grabbed her hair, pulling at it violently, and started banging her head against the wall. Ethan rushed to stop her. But before he could reach her, Olivia collapsed in a heap, unconscious. The next time I saw her, we were in a psychiatric hospital. Olivia sat on her bed, her hair disheveled, rocking back and forth as she alternated between sobbing and laughing uncontrollably. I gave everything. Everything. She cried. I'm the protagonist of a rebirth story. The protagonist is supposed to reach the pinnacle of life. Why hasn't anything changed? I dismissed Ethan from the room and sat down beside Olivia. Sister, I said calmly, you don't understand. It's not the rebirth that matters. It's knowing how to use the advantage of information asymmetry, changing your mindset, and improving your thinking. And you've never had any of that. I leaned closer, my voice sincere. But I still have to thank you. Without you, I wouldn't have achieved the success I have today. Truly, I owe it all to you. Olivia stared at me, her eyes wide and wild, before letting out another blood-curdling scream. The nurses hurried over. Watch her closely. I instructed them. Don't let her hurt herself. I gave clear instructions to the medical staff at the psychiatric hospital before leaving. Today, I had an important meeting to attend. At the deepest part of a narrow alley stood a small, unassuming shop with a faded tile roof. A sign outside read, Wish Fulfillment Shop, $10 per wish. It looked like the kind of place middle schoolers might visit out of curiosity. I stepped inside. Behind the counter, a handsome young man was dozing off with a large yellow tabby cat in his arms. Hearing the sound of the door, he quickly stood up and greeted me with a bright smile. Welcome. What kind of wish can I help you with today? When he saw my face, his smile froze for a moment. Oh, excuse me, he said, regaining his composure. How can I assist you? I smiled faintly. You don't have to pretend. I know my sister was able to get her second chance at life because of you. His eyes flickered with surprise. I continued. It took me a long time to trace this back to your shop, the Wish Fulfillment Shop, run by you, Jizhao, and your partner, Su Xiaoran. From what I've uncovered, Su Xiaoran appears to be just an ordinary college student, but your identity remains completely untraceable. Jizhao quietly set a steaming cup of tea in front of me, but I wasn't in the mood to drink. I cut straight to the point. Name your price. Whatever it is, I can pay. I have only one request. Prevent my sister from ever being reborn again. Jizhao blinked, then smiled softly. You've misunderstood. Our real client wasn't your sister. It was you. I raised an eyebrow. He explained. Time reversal is an extraordinarily costly service. We only offer it to clients who we deem truly worthy. You were selected a long time ago. Then why didn't you come to me? I asked, skeptical. We tried, Jizhao said with a shrug. We left flyers in places we thought you'd see them, sent you promotional texts, even tried to approach you indirectly, but you ignored all of it. I pressed my fingers to my temples. Realizing he might be right, my schedule was packed from morning to night, and I barely had time to breathe, let alone notice what could easily have been dismissed as spam. When that didn't work, we turned to your sister, Ji Zhao continued. Her deep resentment toward her past made her an easy sell. I narrowed my eyes. Did she know she was being used? How is that being used? Ji Zhao replied, his golden brown eyes glinting in the sunlight. We fulfilled her wish. She agreed to the terms, which included bringing you along for the rebirth. It was a straightforward transaction. What happened after that was beyond our jurisdiction. Whether someone rewrites their destiny or makes an even bigger mess of it depends entirely on their own abilities. And why me? I asked, cutting through his vague explanations. Why choose me in the first place? Ji Zhao smiled. You've already answered that question with your actions. This time around, you not only shifted your investment strategy but also focused on the real economy. You created nearly 10,000 jobs, drove manufacturing reforms, and changed countless lives. People like Grace Lee, for example. He gestured toward a financial magazine on the counter, where Grace's smiling face was printed on the cover. The headline read, "From Victim to Visionary, the grassroots entrepreneur transforming rural agriculture." Her radiant expression was a stark contrast to the broken woman I'd known in our past life, a woman who had quietly withered away under the weight of domestic abuse. There are many women like Grace, Ji Zhao said. Because of you, their stories changed. For us, this was a deal well worth making. When Su Xiaoran returned to the shop later that day, Ji Zhao was busy adding cheese, seaweed, crab sticks, and soft-boiled eggs to his instant noodles. Want some? He asked without looking up. Su Xiaoran ignored him, opening her laptop to review the final details of their latest transaction. She murmured as she typed. Olivia will spend the rest of her life in the psychiatric hospital. The Chi family parents went bankrupt and are drowning in debt. Ethan ended up homeless and contracted a nasty disease. Noah is in prison for assault, and his father is now blacklisted for unpaid debts. She listed each outcome methodically, her voice calm. None of this really matters to Chloe, though. These people couldn't stop her in the last life, and they won't in this one. Like she said, she's only going to bring more people into her bigger, brighter world. Finished with her notes, Su Xiaoran glanced at Ji Zhao's instant noodles. What's that mess you're eating? Ji Zhao grinned. Cheese, seaweed, crab sticks, soft-boiled eggs. Want a bite? No. I mean, what's that paper you're using to wipe up the broth? Ji Zhao froze, glancing down at the paper towel. His expression changed instantly. Oh, crap, crap, crap. That's the check Chloe gave us. The massive sum she'd written on it was now smudged and unreadable, soaked through with noodle broth. Su Xiaoran glared at him. Are you serious? Quick, Ji Zhao cried, panicking. Send me back 10 minutes. I need to redo this. Hurry. Ji Zhao, Su Xiaoran said, exasperated. We don't use time reversal powers for nonsense like this. But it's over 50 million. Ji Zhao wailed. Please, just this once. And so, in the quiet little shop, a mini time reversal was set into motion. Somewhere out there, their next high-paying client was already on the way. After winning the $200 million lottery, my boyfriend, Ethan, secretly gave the ticket to the bankrupt campus queen, Lily. He tried to console me by saying, we still have the college entrance exams ahead of us, and she has nothing left. Overjoyed, Lily recklessly drove off, causing an accident that killed me. In court, Ethan forged a suicide note in my handwriting and testified that I had taken my own life. With both evidence and testimony in her favor, Lily was acquitted of all charges. When I opened my eyes again, I was back at the moment when Ethan was fretting over Lily's bankruptcy. This time, I concealed the lottery ticket and slyly suggested to him, you don't have the money to save her, but you still have the college entrance exams. The next day, Ethan, despite having the grades for an Ivy League school, deliberately applied to a lower-tier college and sold his acceptance for $1 million to help Lily. At school, Lily's financial ruin was the talk of the campus, and Ethan was the most distraught of all. His lips were covered in sores from anxiety, yet he lied to me, claiming they were from staying up late to study. Emma, he said, didn't you say you might win the lottery? Did you? His face lit up with anticipation. I shook my head in feigned disappointment, and his expression fell instantly. His eyes were full of dismay as he hastily packed his bag, muttering, "I'm heading to the library to study. I'm not going home with you." Once Ethan was out of sight, I pulled out the lottery ticket I had been holding tightly. I had lied. I had won the lottery, a total of $200 million. In my previous life, I couldn't wait to share the news with Ethan, but instead of celebrating, he gave the ticket to Lily, the campus queen. "We still have the college entrance exams," he said. "She has nothing left. I'm the class president. Emma. It's my duty to help struggling classmates." What a joke. If he wanted to help someone, why not use his own money instead of stealing mine? After losing the lottery ticket in my previous life, I poured all my hopes into the entrance exams. But the day before the test, Lily, thrilled by her newfound wealth, drove recklessly and killed me. After my death, she was so consumed by guilt that she wept profusely. Yet Ethan, unable to bear her pain, forged a suicide note in my handwriting and testified that I had taken my own life. With this evidence, Lily was acquitted and walked free. In gratitude, Lily confessed her feelings for Ethan. With his help, she secured a college recommendation and was accepted into an Ivy League school alongside him. The two became the envy of everyone, a picture-perfect couple. Meanwhile, I was left as the forgotten victim of their success. The painful memories surged within me, and I gripped the lottery ticket tightly. This time, I was determined not only to hold on to my winnings and rewrite my fate, but also to make those two pay for their betrayal in blood. I quickly cashed in the ticket. After paying $40 million in taxes, I was left with $160 million. Seeing the hefty number in my bank account filled me with a deep sense of security. Even my steps felt lighter as I returned to school. To my surprise, as soon as I stepped onto campus, I saw Lily crying by the lotus pond. A crowd of fawning admirers surrounded her, offering their sympathy, including Ethan, who had claimed to be studying at the library. Among the group, Ethan didn't stand out. While others pushed their way to be near Lily, Ethan was left on the edge, gazing at her with helpless sorrow. When Lily caught sight of him out of the corner of her eye, her expression was filled with disdain. I suddenly remembered that in my previous life, Lily only began to see Ethan in a new light after he stole my $200 million lottery ticket for her. From that moment, he went from being an unnoticed nobody to the most devoted follower in her eyes. In this life, Ethan and I were both poor. And to Lily, once a wealthy heiress, Ethan was nothing more than a bright but impoverished scholarship student. He wasn't worth her attention. Watching Ethan's pained expression, longing to love someone he had no chance with, I recalled the happiness on his face in my past life when he handed my lottery ticket to Lily. "I like her," he had said. "As long as she's happy, I don't care if I end up in hell." Back then, Ethan and I were neighbors and desk mates, inseparable. Everyone assumed we were a couple. Even I thought so. Only the final step of confessing our feelings was missing. But that day, after a heated argument, he looked at me with mockery and sneered. "Emma, how could you think I like you? Being with you is so boring. Most of the time, I wish you were her." Then I remember it's impossible. She's so dazzling and full of life. Warm like the sun. You're nothing like her. Dull and lifeless. Ethan's words echoed in my mind. I'm willing to do anything. In my previous life, he proved it. He stole my lottery winnings, protected a murderer, traded a recommendation for Lily, and entered a prestigious college alongside her. He made himself the hero of his love story while utterly destroying my life. He wasn't a murderer, but he might as well have been. I stared at Ethan coldly. In the last life, he sacrificed me to become a champion of pure love. This time, I would ensure Ethan sacrificed himself to light up his own so-called romance. After Lily's family declared bankruptcy, her life spiraled into financial ruin. Short on cash, her entire appearance became haggard and worn. Ethan noticed every detail, and it tore him apart. Unable to help her, he sank into self-recrimination, even to the point where he couldn't concentrate in class. Every lecture found him either daydreaming or obsessively searching for quick ways to make money on his phone. My situation, however, was entirely different. In my last life, My financial situation was even worse than Lily's. Without the lottery, I not only had to study but also work multiple part-time jobs just to scrape together enough money for basic living expenses. But this time, with my lottery winnings, I was free from financial worries. For the first time, I could pour all my energy into studying. Ethan had always been the top-ranked student in our grade, while I was perpetually second. Everyone assumed it was because my intellect wasn't as sharp as his. But I knew the truth. It was the hours lost to my part-time jobs that held me back. If not for that, the top spot would have been mine. And now, I was determined to take it back. While Ethan was consumed by his financial worries, an opportunity presented itself. The school announced the reopening of a financial aid program. With a generous grant of $10,000, there was only one slot available for our class, and 3 of us were vying for it: me, Ethan, and Lily. Lily's expression was full of smug confidence. When the homeroom teacher announced the news, Ethan immediately turned to her with excitement and said, "Lily, I don't need this. You should take it." Lily's face lit up with a radiant smile, and Ethan, momentarily stunned, looked at her with even more adoration. I glanced up from my pile of practice papers and smirked. I haven't given up yet. Why should it be hers? My gaze carried a trace of disdain as I turned to Ethan. In the past, whenever it came down to choosing between me and him for something like this, I always let him have it. But that was out of choice. Not because I couldn't win. Ethan might have good grades, but he was arrogant and self-centered, far less approachable than I was with our classmates. When it came to votes, he couldn't beat me. And Lily? She stood no chance. Before her family's bankruptcy, she carried herself with aloof superiority, refusing to mingle with her peers. Now that she was broke, aside from her sycophantic admirers, few sympathized with her. Unless I withdrew, the grant was mine. Both of them understood this. Lily forced out a few tears, her voice sharp and accusatory. "Emma, my family's bankrupt. Can't you just let me have this? Don't be so selfish." Ah, there it was. Lily's trademark move. Playing the victim and weaponizing morality. She'd done the same in my last life. She was the one who had recklessly killed me. Yet in court, she painted herself as the victim. "It's all her fault," she had cried. If she hadn't been wandering the streets so late at night, I wouldn't have been startled and lost control of the car. It's her fault I panicked. She deserved to die. My expression turned icy as I prepared to respond. But before I could, a lazy but clear voice cut through the air. "That's some moral blackmail right there. Why should everyone have to accommodate you? We're all struggling." Startled, I turned toward the speaker and found myself surprised to see Ryan Chun. Known as the school's heartthrob and the son of a jewelry tycoon, Ryan was famous for his aloofness. It was even rumored that Lily had transferred to this school just to get close to him. But despite sitting next to her for half a year, Ryan had always treated her with indifference. Now, however, he was openly siding with me and embarrassing Lily in front of everyone. Lily's face twisted in a mix of pale shock and furious red. She looked as though she wanted to incinerate me with her glare. Ryan's intervention snapped everyone else out of their silence. And one by one, the classmates around us began murmuring their disdain for Lily. "No way I'm voting for her," someone muttered. "She's ridiculous." Desperate, Lily finally turned her gaze toward Ethan, silently pleading for help. Ethan hesitated, then looked at me with a furrowed brow. "Emma," he said cautiously, "don't you think?" Ethan pulled me aside, his voice low and cautious. "Emma, can I talk to you?" His expression was tense, and I could sense he was trying to stay calm, though his eyes betrayed his nervousness. "Emma," he began, almost pleading, "can you give up the grant spot to Lily? It's really important to me. You'll help me, right?" Not far away, Lily stood motionless, her gaze fixed on Ethan, waiting for the outcome. Both Ethan and I knew exactly what this was. A test from Lily. If Ethan could convince me to step aside, it would elevate his status in Lily's eyes. She might begin to accept him, even rely on him. But if he failed, he'd be seen as useless, unworthy of her attention. Their dynamic would end right here. And Ethan's secret love for Lily would die today. Ethan was terrified of that outcome. His nervousness was obvious. He even swallowed hard as he waited for my response. On the surface, I pretended to be troubled, but inside, I was laughing. I hadn't expected that spending a bit of money would give me the chance to see Ethan reduced to such a ridiculous state. It was a delightful surprise. How could I possibly compete with Lily for this grant spot? The funding behind the school's assistance program came from me. Having received financial aid from the school for years, I decided to give back after my lottery win. Moreover, my ultimate goal was to ensure Lily saw Ethan's worth. If Lily didn't realize how useful Ethan could be, she wouldn't latch on to him. But once she did, she'd cling to him like a leech, draining him of everything he had. I planned to destroy Ethan, but not with my own hands. Watching him be ruined by the one he idolized would ensure his suffering lasted a lifetime. Feigning hesitation, I agreed to give up the grant spot. Ethan immediately ran back to Lily, eager to take credit. For the first time, Lily smiled at him. Her eyes curved in delight as she threw herself into his arms. "You're amazing, Ethan," she cooed, her voice sweet and adoring. Her praise turned Ethan's face bright red, and he fidgeted awkwardly, his hands unsure where to go. Returning to my seat, I began to organize my papers when Ryan Chan, tall and confident, strode over, placing both hands on my desk. He leaned in and said mockingly, "I thought you'd wised up, Emma, but I guess you're still a hopeless romantic." Ignoring him, I focused on my work. Undeterred, Ryan pulled out a chair and sat next to me. "Why bother with Ethan? He clearly doesn't like you. If you're going to waste your energy, why not direct it toward me? I could use a girlfriend." His tone was playful, but his eyes sparkled with genuine interest. Before I could respond, Ethan returned, his head high in confidence brimming from Lily's praise. Ryan turned to him casually. "Hey, Ethan, switch seats with me. You can sit where I was, closer to Lily." Ethan hesitated, glancing at me. After all, we had been desk mates since the beginning of the school year. But his eyes quickly darted back to Lily, who was watching him expectantly. Pretending to consider my opinion, Ethan asked, "Emma, are you okay with this?" I nodded, masking my amusement. It worked perfectly for me. By sitting next to Lily, Ethan would no longer need my help to prove his worth. She'd discover just how much of a tool he could be. After the switch, Lily shot me a glare filled with venomous hatred. Her expression only made me smile. As expected, once Ethan became Lily's desk mate, she wasted no time in exploiting him. She loved snacks and made Ethan run errands to buy her favorite treats daily. Even during class, if she had a craving, Ethan would skip lessons to fetch whatever she wanted. She enjoyed sneaking out and encouraged Ethan to climb over the school walls with her, leading him to internet cafes and shady places. Under the flashing neon lights, she would sway her hips to the music and pass him a cigarette, her lips brushing against his as she handed it over. Under Lily's influence, Ethan transformed with alarming speed. The once praised top student of the school became someone everyone avoided. He skipped class, ignored his studies, and began hanging out in all the wrong places. When Ethan reappeared at school after a 2-day absence, his disheveled state shocked everyone. The top 2 buttons of his school uniform were undone, exposing his collarbone, which now bore a fresh tattoo of Lily's name. The homeroom teacher, who had held such high hopes for Ethan, exploded in anger. "Have you lost your mind, Ethan?" she shouted, furious. "Do you even realize what you're doing to yourself?" But Ethan couldn't even muster the energy to look up, leaning lazily against the doorway. He looked as though he might drift off to sleep at any moment. It wasn't just an act. Ethan was truly falling apart. He was truly exhausted, to the point of wanting to fall asleep right where he stood. Eating, drinking, and having fun all required money. And Lily was already bankrupt. Of course, she had none. To maintain her extravagant lifestyle, Ethan relentlessly took on part-time jobs, earning money to support her expenses. The homeroom teacher, thoroughly disappointed, waved him off and told him to return to his seat. Lily, however, giggled sweetly and praised Ethan, saying, "You looked so cool standing up to the teacher like that." Ethan, despite his fatigue, managed a smile filled with satisfaction at her compliment. Then, the homeroom teacher announced the results of the national physics competition. I had won the gold medal. The classroom erupted into cheers. It was well known that the physics competition was notoriously difficult, but its prestige was unparalleled. Winning gold meant that top universities would offer early admissions, essentially granting a free pass to the best schools. The homeroom teacher looked at me with pride and said warmly, "You can start thinking about which university you want to attend. With your results, Tsinghua and Peking University are both within reach." The class filled with congratulatory voices again, their excitement overflowing. The noise woke Ethan from his stupor. Irritated, he rubbed his ears and scoffed. "It's just early admission. What's the big deal? I can get into Tsinghua or Peking University with my college entrance exam results. No problem." The classroom quieted down slightly. No one doubted Ethan's abilities. He had always been the top student. And even though he had been slipping recently, his strong academic foundation over the past 3 years meant he was still a force to be reckoned with. After making his declaration, Ethan turned to Lily, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "Lily, which university do you like?" "I'll choose the same one as you." Lily beamed, her eyes narrowing in delight. I smirked, but my eyes carried no warmth. "Any university you want." "Huh, no, Ethan. By the end of this, you'll have nowhere to go." After class, Ryan suddenly suggested celebrating my early admission with dinner. His offer caught me off guard, and I laughed, teasing him. "Why would you treat me to dinner for my success?" Ryan glanced at me and answered casually, "Because I'm happy for you. Who wouldn't want to see the person they like succeed?" His words were straightforward, but his gaze lingered, carrying an air of sincerity. Before I could reply, he leaned in conspiratorially and added, "Wear something nice tonight. You might be in for a surprise." I smiled and nodded. Ryan, ever bold, reached out and ruffled my hair affectionately before walking away. As Ryan disappeared from view, the smile on my face froze, and my fingers clenched into fists. No one knew the truth about Ryan. Beneath his charming facade, he was a twisted monster. He enjoyed inflicting pain on animals, on women he targeted, on anything he could control. In my past life, on the night Lily hit me with her car, I had been trying to escape from the personal hell Ryan had created for me. It was the third night of my captivity. I had witnessed him torturing over a dozen cats to death, their anguished cries etched into my mind. Ryan had lifted my chin with his fingers, his smile chillingly carefree. "You're the first girl I've ever truly taken an interest in. Too bad you're always hanging around Ethan. It made it harder to get close to you." The long wait seemed to have heightened his sadistic tendencies, and when he finally had me, his cruelty knew no bounds. He thrived on my fear, loved seeing me teeter on the edge of consciousness, and relished every whimper of pain. It didn't matter if it was on the bed or off. His satisfaction came from my suffering. The memories surged, dark and suffocating, threatening to pull me under. My thoughts were interrupted by Lily's sharp voice cutting through the air behind me. "How did you seduce him? You act like such a studious girl. But who knows what tricks you're hiding to lure men in?" I turned around to face her and found her face twisted with jealousy and bitterness. My plan to destroy Ryan hinged on Lily. I needed her insecurities and ambition to work in my favor. For now, I put on a smug expression, leaning in just enough to make her uncomfortable. "He just likes me better," I said lightly, deliberately goading her. Lily's eyes widened in disbelief as she stared at me. "He really prefers this sort of thing," I added nonchalantly, spreading my hands as if to say, "Isn't it obvious? Why else would he like me and not you?" My words struck a nerve. Lily, with all her pride and vanity, could never accept that someone might find her inferior to me. Her expression twisted further as she tried to process my jab. I added with a sweet smile, "Oh, and he mentioned that he plans to propose to me tonight. By tomorrow, I'll be a wealthy woman married into a prominent family." Returning to the life of wealth and privilege was Lily's ultimate dream, and the jealousy in her eyes as she looked at me only deepened. I pretended to sigh in frustration. "It's too soon," I murmured. "But he said his family is very traditional. If a man gets physically involved with a woman, he must marry her. Since he's planning to spend tonight with me, marriage is a certainty." Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Lily's gaze flicker with calculation as her mind churned. A second later, she began probing about the details of my supposed date with Ryan. subtly trying to gather enough information to take my place. Her intentions couldn't have been more obvious. Inside, I was laughing uncontrollably. How predictable. She had fallen right into my trap, coming up with the ridiculous idea of impersonating me, feigning ignorance. I gave her every detail about the planned date. When she later slipped me 2 sleeping pills under the guise of concern, I even pretended not to notice. As I slept, Lily applied heavy makeup to her face, donned a mask, and changed into my clothes. With a smug smile, she walked out the door, pausing just long enough to glance back at me with a sneer. "You idiot. You deserve to have this life stolen from you," she muttered. "With this mask on, who's going to know I'm not you? Once everything's done and dusted, he won't even have the chance to back out." After Lily left, I opened my eyes and calmly dialed a top entertainment journalist. "I have a story for you," I said, my voice steady. "The son of a jewelry tycoon, Reinchen, is a violent sadist. Tonight, he'll reveal his true nature." The journalist's excitement was palpable through the phone. "What's your condition?" they asked eagerly. "This is explosive news," I replied, my voice chillingly calm as images of Ryan's past cruelty flashed through my mind. Those helpless cats he tortured to death. And his smug declaration, "Torturing animals is unethical, not illegal. No one can stop me. Make it as big as possible," I said. "I want him to be ruined forever." "You can count on me," the journalist promised. True to their reputation, the story broke that very night. News of Ryan's abusive tendencies spread like wildfire. The handsome heartthrob everyone admired was exposed as a violent sadist. It was revealed that his home contained horrifying evidence of animal abuse, dismembered remains and grotesque specimens. The scandal disgusted everyone. "He's vile," one headline read. "A monster hiding behind a charming facade." As for Lily, she didn't escape unscathed. She was carried out of Ryan's house in tears, battered and bruised. It was rumored that she had several broken ribs, but sympathy was in short supply. "Don't feel sorry for her," someone said. "She threw herself at him. She brought it on herself. She's not alone, though." Another added, "Her loyal puppy, Ethan, will never leave her side." I laughed coldly at the thought of Ethan's unwavering devotion. The emptiness of his desk in class didn't surprise me. Ethan's belief in enduring hardship as a testament to love was unshakable. In our past life, when Lily had faced the risk of jail time for killing me, Ethan's first instinct had been to protect her. He saw it as his duty to stand by her, to share her burden, and to strengthen their bond. I imagined he was now at the hospital, fretting over Lily's medical bills while she clung to him like a drowning person clutching at straws. Ryan's brutality had likely left her with serious injuries, and her financial state meant she couldn't afford treatment. The jewelry tycoon wouldn't pay her bills. He'd probably be glad to see her die in the hospital. At this point, Ethan was all she had left, and like a parasitic leech, Lily would pull him down into the depths with her, ensuring he never surfaced again. After a week of skipping school, Ethan finally returned. His first move was to find me. "Emma," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "can you help me out? I need to borrow $1 million to pay for Lily's medical bills." I raised an eyebrow, saying nothing, as he continued, "We've been friends since we were kids. You're the only one I can count on. Please, just this once." Ethan's eyes were filled with desperation and an emotion he likely thought looked like love. "I'll pay you back. Promise. You're my only hope." His tone was pleading, his words dripping with sorrow, but all I felt was revulsion. How pathetic. He really dared to think this would work, throwing a few words at me and expecting I'd saddle myself with $1 million debt, all because his beloved Lily needed medical treatment. From my past life to this one, Ethan had always been consistently selfish. Fortunately, I had anticipated this moment. Sighing, I said, "Ethan, I went to the bank to ask about a loan, but they said I don't qualify. I don't have any assets to back it up, but your family home is in your name. If you apply for a loan, they'll approve it." Ethan's eyes darted away, avoiding my gaze, and I couldn't help but smirk internally. He wouldn't dare use the house as collateral. Ethan's mother, Mrs. Hifangchio, guarded that house like it was her lifeline. If she found out he'd mortgaged it, She might very well kill Lily herself. Besides, that house was the only asset Ethan had. He couldn't bear to part with it. For all his talk of love, Ethan cared most about himself. Leaning into my next move, I slowly pulled out a pamphlet from a technical college and offered. This school has a program where top students can apply and get a $1 million scholarship right away. Ethan's gaze fixed on the pamphlet. For a moment, he looked tempted, but hesitation clouded his expression. I pretended to understand, adding gently, "Forget it. Trading your future for love only happens in novels. We're just ordinary people. Nobody has that kind of grand, self-sacrificing love." No sooner had the words left my mouth than Ethan snatched the pamphlet from my hands. Scoffing, he said, "You don't understand my love for Lily at all. What's a future compared to being with her? I'll do anything for her. And who needs the college entrance exams? I can make something of myself without them." With that, Ethan turned and stormed off. A slow smile spread across my face. I knew Ethan too well. He didn't even truly love Lily. He loved the idea of sacrificing himself for love. That martyrdom gave him a sense of fulfillment. All it took was a small push from me, and he chose love without hesitation. He despised the monotony of studying and exams, which was why he was drawn to someone like Lily, who openly rejected it all. But soon enough, he'd realize how empty life is without the foundation those exams provide. The very next day, Ethan declared that after the college entrance exams, he would attend the technical college in the pamphlet. His announcement sent the homeroom teacher into a near fit. Furious, she called him a fool. Other teachers took turns trying to reason with him, imploring him to rethink his decision. "Ethan, don't be impulsive," one pleaded. "We'll figure out a way to cover the medical bills. Don't throw your future away. Think about the exams." Another added, "You've spent 12 years preparing for this. The exams are your chance to get into a top university and change your life. With a scholarship from Tsinghua or Peking University, you'd have more than enough for the medical expenses. Lily can hang on for a little longer." The teachers spoke with urgency, trying to appeal to Ethan's reason. But the more they pressed, the more determined he became. The pushback only fueled his resolve to sacrifice his future for love, to cast himself as the hero in his own romantic tragedy. That moment, Ethan had just returned from the hospital, carrying Lily in his arms. Her face was pale, and she leaned weakly against him, her frailty amplifying her reliance on him. Ethan was her last lifeline, and she clung to him with desperation. She couldn't afford to let him waver now. Lily glared at the teachers with venom in her eyes and said in a saccharine, mocking tone, "Ethan, listen to your teachers. Give up on me. If you go to that technical college, their year-end bonuses will disappear." Her words ignited a wave of disgust on Ethan's face. Unable to hold back, he shouted, "I've had enough of this. You're all so selfish, only thinking about yourselves. None of you care about my feelings at all." His voice grew louder and more frenzied. "I love Lily. I'm willing to sacrifice my future for her. The college entrance exams mean nothing compared to her." His shouting silenced the room. The teachers exchanged looks, their expressions ranging from disappointment to disbelief, as though they were staring at a stranger. The homeroom teacher's face turned icy with disapproval, her hope for Ethan completely extinguished. I stepped forward to steady the homeroom teacher, gently saying, "Teacher, it's no use. You can't reason with someone blinded by love." The teacher gripped my hand tightly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Emma, please, don't follow his example. Stay focused." I nodded earnestly, and the teacher patted my head with a relieved smile before dismissing the rest of the teachers. She had given up on trying to change Ethan's mind. Lily, triumphant, flashed a smug smile as if she'd passed some great test. But before she could bask in her victory, a cold laugh echoed from the doorway. "You got past the teachers, but you won't get past me." Ethan froze, his panic evident as he stammered, "Mom." Mrs. Yifangqiu strode into the room, closing the distance between us in a few steps. She clasped my hand warmly, her expression full of concern. "Emma, I'm so sorry I'm late. Don't worry. I'm here now. You're the only daughter-in-law I'll ever acknowledge. Your mother and I have been best friends for years, and I care for you as much as she does." I won't let anyone bully you. Lily's triumphant expression immediately crumbled. She hadn't anticipated another obstacle, let alone one as formidable as Mrs. He. Worse, Ethan's confidence began to waver under his mother's scolding. With just a few words, she guilted him into silence, making him too ashamed to mention skipping the prestigious entrance exams again. After delivering her stern warning, Mrs. He gently invited me to return home with her. Your mom misses you, she said softly. I nodded but politely excused myself, saying I would come home later. Once she and Ethan left, I approached Lily, who stood there, fuming with resentment. Leaning in, I whispered, getting around his mom is simple. She has a weakness, greed. Lily frowned suspiciously. Why are you helping me? Smiling sweetly, I replied, maybe I'm just moved by Ethan's devotion. Lily tilted her chin proudly, misinterpreting my words. Of course you are. You're just jealous. Ethan doesn't like you. And no matter what you do, that won't change. I chuckled silently to myself. Jealous? As if. And as for Ethan, the only thing tying me to him was his mother, Mrs. He. She and my mom were neighbors and best friends, which was why Mrs. He had always wanted me to be Ethan's girlfriend. I was, in her eyes, the best match within his reach. But Mrs. He wasn't as trustworthy as she appeared. She was a master manipulator who had completely fooled my mom in our past life. After I died, my mom refused to believe I had taken my own life and insisted on investigating the truth. Mrs. He, using the trust my mom had in her, lured her to a cliff with the promise of evidence, and then pushed her off. This time, I would tear off Mrs. He's mask and expose her lies, and I would drag Ethan down into the abyss alongside her. Lily began scheming, no doubt figuring out how to persuade Mrs. He to accept Ethan's decision to attend a technical college. While she was still mulling over her plan, an explosive piece of news suddenly spread across campus. Someone at our school had won a $200 million lottery. The announcement caused an uproar, and everyone was talking about it. During the break, Lily, resting irritably in Ethan's arms as her injuries tormented her, perked up at the mention of the lottery. Someone from our school won $200 million? That's incredible. A student exclaimed. I wonder who the lucky person is. If it were me, I'd laugh myself awake in my dreams. The instant Lily heard this, her pained wails ceased, and a gleam of greed flickered in her eyes. That moment, Mrs. He stormed back into the classroom with my mom in tow. She pointed an accusatory finger at Lily and shouted, You shameless girl. How dare you cling to my son? I've already said it. Ethan is Emma's boyfriend. Her mother is here too. If you don't back off, she won't let you get away with this. Suppressing a laugh, I watched as my mom hurried to my side, her face filled with concern. She had always known how much I cared for Ethan. Emma, don't be afraid. She reassured me. Mrs. He has always doted on you. She'll make sure everything works out. Mrs. He nodded vigorously in agreement. But before they could continue, Lily suddenly straightened up and boldly declared, Do you know who won the $200 million lottery? It's me. Her words sent shockwaves through the room. Everyone froze in disbelief, including Mrs. He, whose expression twisted with astonishment and suspicion. You're lying, she spat. If you won the lottery, why would you need my son to trade his grades for money? Lily sneered. I was just testing your son to see if he'd be willing to sacrifice for me. If he passed, I planned to share the $200 million with him. The mention of splitting the prize money lit up Mrs. He's eyes with greed. It was unmistakable, but Lily scoffed, her voice dripping with disdain. Unfortunately, he has a foolish mother who forced me to reveal the truth. Fine, have it your way. I'll let your son go to Tsinghua University. Not a single penny of that $200 million will go to him, Lily declared. Tears streamed down her face as she turned to Ethan, crying, Ethan, I really wanted to attend the same university as you. I'm so sorry. I was selfish and ended up ruining your future. Ethan, moved by her words, shook his head vehemently. You wanted to go to the same school as me? Don't worry. I'm set on going to that technical college. We'll be together no matter what. Lily's tears flowed even harder as she turned to Mrs. He, sobbing. But your mom doesn't approve of me. Without her blessing, we can't be happy. I'm sorry. Let's break up. Faced with the choice between Tsinghua University and $200 million, Mrs. He didn't hesitate. Smiling broadly, she said, "Of course I approve. Why wouldn't I? That's why I brought Emma's mom here today. To show her the reality of the situation. Her daughter doesn't compare to you." My mom's expression turned to one of utter disbelief as she stared at Mrs. He. She couldn't fathom the betrayal. Mrs. He, growing impatient, snapped, "You see? She has $200 million. While Emma can't even afford her tuition. How could she possibly compare? Take your daughter and stay away from my son." My mom trembled with rage. But I steadied her and spoke calmly. "If we're so beneath you, then you'd better move out of our house as soon as possible." Both our families owned houses, but Mrs. He had moved into ours, relying on her own property for rental income, taking advantage of my mom's kindness. She had been living comfortably at our expense. Mrs. He waved her hand dismissively. "Fine, we'll move out. My daughter-in-law has $200 million. What's one house compared to that?" She then turned her attention back to Lily, coaxing her. After much persuasion, Lily finally reluctantly agreed to stay with Ethan. That very day, Ethan signed the agreement to attend the technical college, securing the $1 million scholarship. The contract stipulated that if he failed to attend the college or didn't score high enough for Tsinghua University, he would face a $10 million penalty. With the money in hand, Lily embraced Ethan in front of everyone, and the two left the classroom together. The homeroom teacher, having completely given up on Ethan, coldly told them to leave. They cast disdainful looks at the teacher, then walked out hand in hand, flaunting their relationship around the campus. Using part of the $1 million, Lily covered her surgery costs and still had plenty left over. With the surplus, she quickly returned to her lavish lifestyle, frequenting nightclubs and indulging in her usual extravagant habits. Meanwhile, Ethan became a school celebrity, earning the nickname the Saint of Pure Love. He wore the title proudly, basking in the attention. His relationship with Lily became even more high-profile, and he reveled in the satisfaction of protecting his so-called true love and achieving a happy ending with her. Ethan's bliss lasted until the second semester of senior year. During the mock exams that simulated the college entrance exams, the results were a wake-up call. Ethan dropped from being the top-ranked student to 10th place, while I rose to take the top spot. The mock exams were highly indicative of actual college entrance exam performance, and Ethan's total score fell far below Tsinghua University's cutoff from the previous year. The technical college immediately sent him a warning. If his real exam score didn't meet Tsinghua's threshold, he would be liable for the $10 million penalty. For the first time, Ethan panicked. He couldn't bear the thought of starting his adult life saddled with $10 million in debt. Desperate, he tried to refocus on his studies, but when he attempted to reintegrate into the class, he found himself excluded. "Why wasn't I told about the weekend tutoring sessions?" Ethan stormed into the teacher's office, his frustration boiling over. "Why wasn't I informed?" Since Ethan had signed the agreement, the homeroom teacher had completely given up on him. He was excluded from every class activity, including extra lessons. The teacher, unfazed by his anger, let out a cold, mocking laugh. Her voice, sharp and icy, cut through the room. "The school doesn't waste resources on technical college students." Those words seemed to crush Ethan, and his face turned an unsightly shade. But he couldn't refute them. "I have talent," he muttered, trying to convince himself. "I don't need extra classes. I can catch up just by attending the regular ones." Ethan gave up his habit of skipping class and began attending every lecture diligently. However, after less than a week, his resolve was already starting to crack. He couldn't immerse himself in the class's study environment. Everyone was focused on the college entrance exams, driven by the hope and anxiety of getting into prestigious universities. But Ethan was different. No matter how high his scores might be, his destination was already set: a technical college. His classmates avoided him, and the teachers ignored his questions as if he didn't exist. He was treated like air, cut off from the most basic principles of interaction within the group. It was as though a drab gray duckling had wandered into a flock of elegant swans. When Ethan had first announced signing the agreement, he'd been celebrated as the saint of pure love. But now, He was nothing more than a laughingstock. Day by day, his frustration grew. Meanwhile, Lily, having spent all the money Ethan had earned from the scholarship, waltzed into the classroom without a care. Ethan immediately approached her, his voice urgent. Lily, can you help me pay the penalty fee? Then we can go to Tsinghua together. Okay. Ethan had once thought it didn't matter where he went as long as he was with Lily, but now, he understood that it wasn't the same at all. Lily, startled, stammered, paying the penalty fee won't help. I don't have the grades to get into Tsinghua. I can tutor you, Ethan said eagerly, desperation etched on his face. Lily laughed dismissively. You might love teaching, but I don't love learning. If you can figure out a way for me to get into Tsinghua without studying, then I'll pay the penalty fee. She thought her response would be enough to pacify Ethan, but she failed to notice the determined gleam in his eyes. After class, Ethan came over to my desk, smiling warmly, the way he used to. Emma, congratulations on becoming the top student in our grade. It's been a while since we've talked, hasn't it? Feigning casualness, he asked. By the way, which university did you choose for your early admission? I gripped my pen tightly, suppressing the smirk threatening to surface. As expected, Ethan was scheming again, trying to rope me into his plans. In our past life, he'd stolen my early admission offer and used it to secure Lily's spot at Tsinghua. Now, it was time to settle the score. Tsinghua, I replied calmly. Hearing my response, Ethan's eyes immediately gleamed with greed. He licked his lips and said, That's an excellent choice. Emma, can I take a look at your early admission letter? Early admission letters from top universities are formal agreements sent to outstanding students. Signing and returning the document guarantees admission, and the university follows up with an official acceptance letter. Ethan, with his knack for forgery, could easily replicate the letter using the details from mine. By altering the information, he could replace my name and photo with Lily's, effectively transferring my spot to her without anyone noticing. In our past life, this was precisely how Ethan had stolen my admission and given it to Lily after I had died. I smiled faintly and handed him the letter. Ethan eagerly scanned the details, committing every line to memory. His face lit up with triumph as he returned the letter to me, feigning a sympathetic tone. Congratulations, Emma. Then, with a smug expression, he strode back to his seat and leaned close to Lily, whispering about his plan to secure her spot at Tsinghua using my admission offer. Lily let out an excited shriek. Ethan, is that true? You're amazing. Ethan tilted his chin proudly, his face glowing with self-satisfaction. Of course. Just wait. You're going to Tsinghua with me. Lily, overjoyed, threw her arms around him. Though Ethan didn't like studying, he still clung to the belief that his scheme would work. Lily, even if you're not into learning, I can teach you, he said cheerfully. Once the acceptance letter arrives, you'll help me pay the penalty fee, right? Then we can go to Tsinghua together. Lily averted her eyes, nervously nodding. There was no way she'd tell Ethan the truth, that she hadn't won the lottery at all. Ethan, oblivious to Lily's hesitation, hummed a tune as he flipped through his textbook, clearly pleased with himself. I leaned back in my chair, watching him lazily, my shoulders shaking with silent laughter. He truly thought I was as naive as in my past life, ready to walk blindly into his trap. Ethan, I've already prepared your grave. Enjoy this fleeting moment of joy, because soon, you'll sink into the darkness forever. Ethan successfully forged Lily's admission information and swapped it with mine. When I sent out my official acceptance form, Ethan and Lily were ecstatic, unable to contain their glee, as my classmates congratulated me on being admitted, telling me I had a bright future ahead. Lily couldn't help but let out a laugh. Don't celebrate too early, she said with a smug smile. The final admittee might not be who you think. One of my classmates shot back. Whoever it is, it definitely won't be someone ranked last in the grade. Go talk about your romance elsewhere. What do Tsinghua and college entrance exams have to do with a pair of technical college sweethearts like you? The classroom erupted with laughter, and comment after comment tore at Lily's pride. Her face twisted in anger as she snapped. For your information, the person Tsinghua accepts will be me. The agreement has already been sent. no longer trying to hide her intentions. Lily openly bragged about her supposed early admission to Tsinghua, claiming she'd soon receive the official acceptance letter. Though most of my classmates dismissed her claims as nonsense, her confidence made some uneasy. They approached me, warning me to be cautious, as these types of identity theft schemes had occurred before. The penalties were severe: expulsion at best, criminal charges at worst, which had largely deterred such behavior. But no one could guarantee that Lily wouldn't be reckless enough to try. I just smiled, offering no response. I had already planned everything. The day the acceptance letters arrived, Lily and Ethan were the first to rush into the classroom. When the homeroom teacher entered with the letters in hand, Lily's gaze locked onto them, staring so intensely it was as if she could burn a hole through the envelopes. Ethan gently held her hand, trying to calm her nerves. "Don't worry," he said soothingly. "Your name is definitely on that letter." The teacher raised the envelopes, her cold gaze sweeping across Lily and Ethan. "I have 2 early admission letters here," she said icily. "One is for Lily, admitted to Tsinghua University." Lily let out a piercing shriek of joy, jumping up and down in celebration. But Ethan's expression flickered with unease. "And the second," the teacher continued, "is for Emma, admitted to Peking University." Ethan's face instantly drained of color, while Lily continued to celebrate, oblivious to the shift in tone. The teacher's next words cut through the room like a blade. "Tsinghua informed us that Emma had already declined their offer, and they have the records to prove it. However, someone attempted to use her personal information to fraudulently claim her spot. This is a serious violation, and we will handle it with utmost severity." Lily finally realized something was wrong. Turning to Ethan, she frowned and hissed, "What's going on? Didn't you say everything was foolproof?" Ethan's panicked gaze darted to me. His voice trembled with rage as he growled, "Emma, you set me up." I smiled faintly. "I just went along with your plan." Ethan's plan was, admittedly, flawless. He banked on the assumption that Tsinghua wouldn't have my updated information. By overriding my personal details with Lily's, he intended to make her the recipient of my admission. That's why he was so eager to confirm which university I had chosen. But what he didn't know was that I had been playing him from the very beginning. I hadn't chosen Tsinghua. My actual selection was Peking University. Everything else had been a smokescreen. The homeroom teacher's voice rang out like the final judgment. "Ethan and Lily, the school has reviewed your fraudulent actions and issued a decision." All eyes turned to the teacher, waiting for the verdict. "You are both expelled. Furthermore, your eligibility for the college entrance exams is revoked." The teacher's words landed like a thunderclap. Ethan's face turned ashen, his expression frozen in shock. Lily, on the other hand, erupted into a fit of anger. "Why am I being punished?" she demanded, her voice shrill. This was all Ethan's doing. I didn't participate. If anyone should be punished, it's him. Ethan looked at her in disbelief. He had never imagined that the woman he loved would throw him under the bus at a moment like this. Lily, refusing to accept the outcome, angrily pressured Ethan to admit that it was entirely his idea and had nothing to do with her. The homeroom teacher looked at them both with a mocking smile, her disdain palpable. I raised my head and said what everyone was thinking. "Ethan, how does love taste now?" Ethan's expression turned bitter. In the end, he took full responsibility for the scheme, preparing to pack his things and leave the school. But he hadn't anticipated that things were far from over. As soon as the expulsion was official, the technical college that had given Ethan the $1 million scholarship sent a representative to demand the $10 million penalty fee for breaching the contract. The representative, visibly annoyed, sneered at Ethan. "I knew you were an idiot when you signed that deal. Who gives up Tsinghua for a measly $1 million? Hurry up and pay the $10 million, or you can spend the rest of your life rotting in prison." The mention of prison turned Ethan's face pale with fear. Falling to his knees, he begged the representative for more time. "My girlfriend won the $200 million lottery. $10 million is nothing. I'll get the money from her right away." Scrambling, Ethan ran to find Lily, who was at that moment holding one of my Hermes bags, a bag she had stolen from me. I caught her red-handed, but Lily refused to admit it. "This Hermes bag is mine," she declared arrogantly. I used to be a rich heiress. You're just a poor scholarship student. How could you possibly afford something like this? The onlookers murmured in agreement. After all, Lily had once been a wealthy socialite, and with her alleged lottery winnings, owning a Hermes bag seemed perfectly plausible. Meanwhile, I, a struggling student reliant on part-time jobs, couldn't possibly afford such a luxury. Lily clutched the bag tightly, her eyes gleaming with triumph. I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all. She truly had no intention of coming clean, so it seemed I would have to reveal the truth myself. Clearing my throat, I prepared to expose her lies. But before I could say a word, Ethan stormed up behind me and slapped me across the face. The blow was so forceful that my vision blurred, and a dull pain radiated from my cheek. Stars danced before my eyes, and if not for a classmate catching me, I would have collapsed from the momentum. Ethan glared at me with unbridled hatred. Emma, haven't you done enough? You schemed against me, and now you're trying to smear Lily. I'll kill you. Stunned and disoriented, I raised a trembling hand to my lips, only to feel the cold trickle of blood. The sight of it snapped a nearby classmate into action, and they ran off to get a teacher. After striking me, Ethan immediately turned his attention back to Lily, rushing to her side. Are you okay, Lily? Did she hurt you? Lily recoiled in disgust, roughly shaking off his hand. Why are you still here? You should have been expelled already. Panicked, Ethan grabbed her wrist and pleaded. Lily, the technical college is demanding I pay the $10 million penalty fee, or they'll send me to prison. Please, you have to help me. Lily cast him a disdainful glance, her voice dripping with contempt. Help you? Keep dreaming. Why should I give you money? Lily sneered. Ethan grabbed her wrist tightly, his voice trembling with anger. That money was borrowed for you. I took the fall for you and got expelled because of you. I love you. I've done so much for you. And now you won't even help me with 10 million. Lily scoffed, her tone dripping with disdain. If you weren't useful to me, do you think I'd have wasted my time with you? Take a good look at yourself. Who do you think would want someone like you? Sacrificing yourself for me is your honor. As for repayment, don't even think about it. Now that Ethan had lost all value to her, Lily no longer felt the need to keep up any pretense. Ethan was consumed by fury. You're the one who said you had 200 million. If it weren't for that, why would I have signed the agreement so easily? Where's your 200 million now? Just loan me 10 million. That's all I need. Do you want my life to be ruined? Ethan's desperate pleas earned him some sympathy from the onlookers, and several people began urging Lily to help him. Lily's expression turned awkward and guilty under the mounting pressure. That moment, the principal arrived, flanked by teachers. Seeing me on the ground, the principal rushed over to help me up, his voice commanding the room. Who says she can't afford an Hermes bag? Just last time, the school awarded Emma $10 million in financial aid. The entire room fell silent, stunned by the revelation. Lily refused to believe it. How could she possibly have $10 million? The principal let out a cold laugh. Because she's the one who actually won the $200 million lottery. Not like you, who only knows how to lie. The truth unraveled Lily's composure, her face twisted with panic and disbelief, while Ethan stood frozen, staring at me with a mix of shock and regret. The principal's disdain for Lily was evident. Taking the opportunity, he announced, Lily violated school regulations by stealing. She is hereby expelled. Lily met the same fate as Ethan, expelled and disgraced. She tried to throw a tantrum, but no one paid her any attention. Even Ethan ignored her, his focus entirely on me. In this moment of desperation, he knew I was the only one who could save him. Ethan hesitated before walking over to me. His voice was strained as he said, Emma, I'm sorry. I pressed a cold pack against my swollen cheek and replied icily, apology not accepted. You owe me for my medical expenses, and I'm filing charges against you for assault. Ethan's expression darkened instantly. Frowning, he snapped, didn't you like me? If you pay the 10 million, I'll be with you. Isn't that what you've always wanted? His condescending tone, as if I should feel grateful for his offer, made me laugh in disbelief. My laughter was sharp, laced with mockery. Do you think you're worth anything? You're just a man about to go to prison. Why would I ever want you? Ethan's face flushed with embarrassment and anger. Stop pretending, he barked. You've always liked me. There was a hint of pride in his expression, as if my affection for him was some kind of trophy. But it only disgusted me further. So he had always known. He knew I liked him. Even when he stole my lottery ticket to give to Lily, when he forged my suicide note, and when he stole my college admission spot. He knew. And he used my feelings to create a perfect future for his so-called true love. All while trampling on my sincerity. Someone like him deserved no sympathy. My last shred of affection for him evaporated completely. The $10 million penalty fee, plus my medical expenses and damages for emotional distress. Ethan, get ready to spend the rest of your life in prison. Panic and despair clouded Ethan's eyes as he fell to his knees, begging me for forgiveness. But his pleas meant nothing to me. In our past life, he had shielded a murderer. In this life, he would rot in jail. Once Ethan's fate was sealed, it was Lily's turn. Being expelled from school was nothing compared to the hit and run she committed in our past life. I had already devised the perfect punishment for her, one that would make her wish she were dead. With $160 million at my disposal, I was just getting started. I began deliberately learning about investments and stepped into the jewelry industry. Money sitting idle is dead money, and I didn't want to just hold on to $160 million. I wanted more. Enough to defeat all those vile individuals. Like Ryan's father, the so-called jewelry tycoon. Like father, like son. Ryan's sadistic tendencies were inherited directly from his father. While Ryan enjoyed torturing cats, his father took pleasure in abusing students. Under the guise of philanthropy, the tycoon would sponsor students, gaining their gratitude and trust. Then, he would subject them to psychological and physical torment, verbally degrading them and whipping them with lashes. His so-called aid offered a glimmer of hope, only to plunge these students into an even darker abyss. In my past life, a fellow student in the sponsorship group revealed the truth to me. Not long after, they died in a suspicious accident. Back then, I was just as desperate and powerless as they were. But now, I've been reborn. Heaven gave me a second chance, and I intend to extend that chance to them. I want to offer them genuine support, to lead them toward a brighter future. This life isn't just about revenge. It's about gratitude, too. As I grew more skilled in managing my finances, my wealth multiplied. Bit by bit, I chipped away at the jewelry tycoon's company. Once I had enough evidence, I sent him to prison. After the tycoon was behind bars, I had Ryan transferred from prison to a mental institution. Then, I ensured that Lily was sent there as well. Ryan's years in prison hadn't dulled his sadistic tendencies. In fact, they had only grown more twisted and cruel. In the asylum, Lily became Ryan's sole target. The moment Ryan saw Lily being brought in, he grinned like a predator finding its prey. To him, Lily was the cause of all his suffering. If she hadn't tried to take my place, he believed he wouldn't have been caught and imprisoned. Every day, Lily's screams echoed through the asylum. With Ethan in prison, his mother, Mrs. He, lost both her future support and my mom's financial help. Her only property was sold off to pay debts, leaving her to work nonstop just to scrape by. Desperate, she tried to beg my mom for forgiveness, but my mom didn't have the time or patience to deal with her. Instead, my mom was busy preparing gifts and warm clothing for the students I was sponsoring. Her days were filled with purpose and joy. As the number of students I supported grew, I began to change more and more lives. They affectionately called me Big Sister, their eyes full of hope and gratitude when they looked at me. No longer did they face the bleak despair of my past life, where so many of them died tragically, their faces devoid of life. How wonderful it is to have been reborn, not just for myself, but for them as well.